All right, so we are going to look at chapter 19. This is going to be the chapter all about industrial improvements and hazards of the city, urban life, and different reforms that are going to try to make some changes. All right, so some of the stuff that was going on is we are finally going to get mass transit. So we're going to have the technology to have trolley systems, elevated roadways, which are still visible today, especially in Chicago, and then underground lines, like you experience in New York. So what's going to happen is that on the outskirts of the urban centers is going to be kind of the beginnings of a suburb, not quite what we know today as a suburb, but the beginnings of a suburb where those people are going to have to commute in. So these different technology advancements are going to help with this mass transit. We're also going to finally get electricity, which is scary. The wealthy are going to start it, and then it's going to kind of start trickling into people. The telephone, which is obviously something that you all wouldn't be able to live without. And then plumbing, all right? And plumbing is going to be questionable because people are like, I don't know if I want a toilet in my house. That's gross. But eventually we're going to get to the idea that maybe the outhouse is on the outs and the toilet inside is a good thing. So we're also going to get skyscrapers, which is going to help Carnegie Steels. Remember the captains of industry, robber barons. So steel is going to be big. We're also going to get elevators, which is a really big thing. And what that means is that our buildings are growing in height and they're going upwards, which is good for New York because there's no land to go outwards. So it's going to be pretty important. The first building considered a high rise is going to be the home insurance building in Chicago. I'll show you an image of that in just a minute. And then we're going to get the electric city, right? The idea is that gas lamps, somebody walking around lighting up lamps every night filled with kerosene, those are going to be replaced with incandescent light bulbs. And we're going to kind of bring a brighter and safer aspect to urban life. All right, so for example, okay, you can see up here on the top left is your home insurance building, 1885. All right, and then we're going to get Marshall Field Store in 1885 as well. So we're going upwards. We're made with brick and cement. And then eventually we're going to get even bigger. Here we go. This is the Woolworth building in New York. And this, you can see the amount of steel being used. So a huge transition, growing upwards. And this is the first light pole. This is Minneapolis, so go Minneapolis. And this is a huge lighting system that's going to be used. Almost looks like kind of a spotlight system right now compared to what we're used to. So think about the idea of city innovations, and with the amount of immigrants flooding in, technology advancements, different things that are going on, think about what problems you might foresee with such an increase in population in the cities as we move through this chapter. So first thing to note is that there's going to be ethnic neighborhoods. So when immigrants come in, they're going to seek out their own kind, and then they're going to live in that same area. This is going to be how we get like the Irish Boston Center. This is going to be how we get kind of the Swedish Center in Minneapolis, the Italian Center in New York. They're just cultural enclaves that are just going to stay together. Stores, churches, everything like that. And then we're going to get African Americans beginning in about the 1900s. There's going to be this great migration northward. Okay. This is obviously going to result in discrimination and riots. The North is really no better than the South. It's just that the North doesn't put it in their city charters and laws, but we are going to discriminate, which is going to result in riots. So New York City is going to have one in 1900, Evansville 1903, Springfield 1908, and they're just going to keep going. We're actually going to have some Chicago riots in 1919. It doesn't get any better. So, all right, what these people are going to live in is called a tenement. So it's a 5 to 6 story building, super cheap housing. And what they do is they board up the sections of what would have one time been one family living on that floor. They're going to put up some different walls so that they can cram even more families into that, which leads to dirty, gross living situations and high infant mortality rates. All right, this is just an example of kind of the different enclaves that are going to go on. So up here in the blue, we have kind of like the Hungarian section, right? We're going to have over here the green, the Romanian. So people just kind of living together. All right, so this is an example of a tenement. The idea is these are actually pretty big for a tenement, really, but we're going to have little to no air shafts, maybe a toilet inside, and very small space. And the idea is multiple people will live in these rooms. So This is just an image of the different um, increases in immigration. So you can see that around the world, all right, we have people coming to us due to different reasons. Some cartoons. All right, so Uncle Sam, usually seen, as the uh, we want you to enlist in the army. This is Uncle Sam not really caring for the different types of people coming to our country, which kind of speaks to the nativism that's still spreading across the U.S. All right, but coming with this comes some city fun time. Okay, we're gonna get in urban amusements. We're gonna get vaudeville is gonna be really huge. We're gonna get the Nickelodeons and different amusement parks. So Coney Island is gonna be established. Ragtime and City Blues is going to be super popular. So Scott Joplin is going to be a major star during this time period. We're going to have theaters. And what this means is that there's more dating and less parent supervision. Okay. So then there's also the seedy underground, which is going to continue going on. All right. Which is just going to fuel prostitution and the gay subculture. So just like earlier chapters, when the urban centers grow, there's the above ground, and then there's the red light, shady section of the urban centers. So, all right. So remember that there's also going to be art. Okay, Carnegie, thanks to his gospel of wealth philosophy, everybody's going to start throwing money around and creating things for people. He's going to really invest in arts, and museums, libraries. Uh, Places for concerts. So the high culture of sorts is going to start going. Then we're going to get kind of this yellow journalism idea of the sexy headlines, what sells a paper. So this is going to be where you get the kids standing on the corner yelling, read all about it, and people buy the paper for the outlandish headline and usually the completely unsubstantiated story that goes with it, because checking a source was an option back then, and that's something you actually had to do. Two people who are going to be the head of this is going to be Joseph Pulitzer and William Hearst, and they are going to support a form of journalism called muckrakers, and these people are going to investigate corruption inside of business and government all over the place. So you definitely really need to be familiar with yellow journalism, Pulitzer Hearst, and muckrakers, because we're going to talk a lot about them. And here are the examples of their headlines. All right, this is the Yellow Kid cartoon. So we're going to print papers with colored ink. So that's a pretty big deal. So this is an example of one of the first popular cartoons during the time. Perhaps a little freaky to us today, but this is what was very popular back in this time. All right, then we're going to get urban machines, political machines. Okay, so just like the Australian ballot case, we're going to have cases like Tammany Hall in New York. The plus to them is that they are highly supported by immigrants, right? Because they meet them at the docks. They say, "Welcome to America. Here's a blanket. Here's an address for a room to rent. And if you need a job, I got a guy. So go here tomorrow and you'll get a job." So that right there, they say that immigrant is going to vote for that person that got them the job in the house. So that's kind of how Tammany Hall worked. They were also super corrupt, so definitely remember that. All right, so then we're going to have public parks, we're going to have markets, we're going to have paved streets. So we're going to have all these things, all right, that we like to go wander around and do when we travel to a new city. We're going to have sewage systems, we're going to have bridges, so we're going to limit the amount of disgustingness in our city streets, which is definitely needed because it's gross. All right, so the ward politics is going to be huge. We'll go over this in class. All right, we are going to have a depression in the 1890s due to the extreme growth in our population. It's going to result in a high unemployment rate and homelessness rate. So middle-class reformers are going to be encouraged to contribute to charitable organizations. And then urban voters are going to seek to fix this poverty problem, and they're going to force politicians to make some changes. So some of those changes are going to be public baths, gyms, playgrounds, free concerts, and lower the fares for street travel. So we're going to try to be able to get them to move around so they can get a job and they can travel, get them baths so that they can get cleaned up, gyms so they can get fit, and playgrounds for the kids. All right, so again, consider this problem, all right, that you might foresee during this whole thing. We're going to talk about this in class. Okay, so let's clean up the urban environment. Here's the deal, we're gross and disgusting, okay? And we just throw our, chamber pots out the windows of any place that we live, city or otherwise. We're eventually going to figure out that germs and bacteria travel in such an instance. So when you have your morning chamber pot and you throw it out the window and then it lands on the sidewalk and then it rains and then that gets into the gutter and then that goes to our water supply, this is a lot of why people get sick. And eventually we figure it out and we decide, hey, we in America probably ought to clean this up too. So we're going to have some hygiene improvements which are going to lead to us fighting tuberculosis, which was a huge medical issue during the late 1880s into the early 1900s. So, and we're going to city beautiful, okay, and advocate for parks and things like that. So, we're also going to seek to close down the red light districts, okay, because we're going to say that these women being taken from the ships, being put into prostitution, this is not good. So we're going to go after them. And we're going to try to shut down those districts. This is one of my favorite images because this is normal, right? The idea is that, all right, a wagon is out making its deliveries. The horse dies. They say, uh-oh. They run. They go get a new horse. They unhook the dead horse. They leave it there. They hook up the live horse, and then they go off. And then kids, because there's no formed educational system, especially for immigrant children, have nothing better to do but literally, play with the dead, rotting animal. That's our city, folks. Good thing we have reform. All right, so then we're going to get Jane Addams. She's going to create the whole house. All right, and this is going to be the first kind of social work system that's going to help out immigrants, help educate them, give them job training, help them with daycare. That's pretty much the point of the whole house. That's Jane Addams' passion. And then we're going to get open libraries. Thank you, Carnegie. We're going to get gyms like the YMCA. And then we're going to get cooperative kitchens, which is going to help feed people. Then we're going to have tragedies such as the Triangle Shirtwaist Fire. So, March 25th, 1911, a bunch of women in a floor of a building, they're sewing shirtwaist, which is the undershirt for men's suits. It's going to start on fire, except for the fire doors don't work and they can't get out. So these women actually start to jump out of the windows to their death. 146 people are going to die here. And this is going to lead to different regulations within businesses and factories, which is going to lead to some reforms. So get this all into your notes. Get your big ideas updated. Be sure to have things like the Triangle Shirtwaist Fire in there. And until next time, guys.